Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of All Angles. I'm Dion Jackson Miller. So the new Road Traffic Act has been in effect for 1 week now. And I know we've been spending most of the time talking about seatbelts and child restraint systems, but there's actually a whole heap more that's in this act. People have lots of questions. Some people still have concerns. We're focusing on that in today's edition of the program. And joining me in studio, Dr. Lucien Jones. You know, I found a 2016 quote from Dr. Jones, who was expressing disappointment at the time that Parliament was being dissolved pending a general election without the Road Traffic Act being passed. And he said in 2016, February, I'm disappointed but fairly sure that when the next government is formed, they're going to treat with it urgently, he said in 2016. So he joins us, Vice Chair of the National Road Safety Council. We have with us as well Tigana Madden, rejoins us, bus operator and member of One Voice Transport Association, and attorney at law Gavin Goff, who has also been very vocal on this issue of the Road Traffic Act. Remember as well, you can participate. WhatsApp us. It's 3810072. That's 876-381-0072 with your questions, your comments. We'll try to answer them. It's a whole heap of sections, so we'll see what we can do. And before we get to our discussion, though, let us go to this short overview.
The legislation seeks to mandate actions to protect children as best as possible from the effects of a collision. We are, however, aware that in some cases a compromise has to be made when the practical realities are taken into account. The realities of our public passenger transportation system and how it operates will place an undue burden on parents whose children need to travel in public transportation, whether accompanied by an adult or not. The risk of the inability to access transportation services may exceed the risk associated with travel without using a child restraint system. And in this regard, the rules applicable to public transport vehicles will have to be less stringent than those for private vehicles.
Transport Minister Audley Shaw announcing changes to the regime governing seat restraints for children in public passenger vehicles. The changes come after a week of protest since the new Road Traffic Act came into effect on February 1, with a mandate for all vehicles to have child restraint systems if transporting children under the age of 12. The requirement for the use of child restraint systems was a 1999 amendment to the old Road Traffic Act but was never enforced. The changes announced by the Transport Minister do not affect private vehicles. There are several other provisions of the new law that are now being discussed, some also carried over from the old Act but never seriously enforced, while others are new. For example, the old Act mandated that anyone riding on or driving a motorcycle should wear a helmet. The new law says riders and drivers of motorcycles and bicycles must wear helmets. It's the motorcycle driver's responsibility to make sure that pillion riders are wearing helmets. You're not allowed to use electronic communication devices on the road except in hands-free mode. Drivers are not supposed to use electronic or wireless communication devices to view, send or compose electronic messages. This doesn't apply if the vehicle is off the road, lawfully parked, not in motion and not impeding traffic. You're not supposed to drive while using an electronic visual device either. The penalties under the new law have been significantly increased. That's one of the major complaints coming from taxi operators. Here are some examples. Driving a motor vehicle without a valid fitness certificate now attracts a penalty of $30,000 and 10 days if the fine isn't paid. That's up from $800. Exceeding the speed limit has gone from a maximum of $2,000 to $15,000. Failure to stop at a traffic light or stop sign is now $10,000, up from $1,500. And here are a few provisions of the law you may not know about. Driving or attempting to drive a motor vehicle across a funeral procession, that's $5,000. Smoking ganja while driving, $10,000. Employing or permitting someone to drive a motor vehicle without a driver's license, that's $30,000 or 10 days in prison if not paid. Erecting an advertising sign on the road where prohibited, $50,000 or 30 days. The new Road Traffic Act is supposed to help reduce motor vehicle crashes. A record 488 people died on Jamaica's roads in 2022. All right, so let's start. I was mentioning that the act is pretty long. 136 sections in the Road Traffic Act itself, and I was looking at the regulations, which is 299 sections. So it's a whole heap of provisions. And Dr. Jones, in honor of you, who has been championing this legislation for so many years, what's the most important thing about this law coming into effect for you?
Well, first of all, it's not me alone. It's a team. I have the privilege of leading a team outside of when we meet with the Prime Minister, who is the chairman. So big up to the team, not me alone. Context really. So we have been having great difficulty reducing the number of people dying on our roads. And by the way, road traffic injuries represent the second leading cause of violent death in this country, just below murder. So last year, little over 1,500 people died by murder, crime. Just under 500 people died on our roads last year. So we're talking about grief and pain. So how do you stop that? Well, two things. One is that we have adopted the World Health Organization's recommendations that countries that want to successfully reduce road traffic injuries ought to adopt what is called a safe systems approach. Safe roads, safe speeds, safe road users, safe vehicles, and effective post-crash system. The passage of the new Road Traffic Act will help us significantly in combination with a more robust system to have safe speeds on our roads. And of course, obviously, to have safe road users. You cannot smoke ganja or marijuana and drive carefully. You cannot drink and drive carefully. I heard somebody speaking about why marijuana and not cigarette. Cigarette has no part in this. Cigarette does not influence you how you drive. It's another public health issue, but it's a separate issue. So we're not coming down on marijuana people.
It doesn't impair you driving, you're saying?
It does not. But marijuana does significantly so, and so does alcohol. And therefore we have the phrase over the years, if you drink, don't drive. And we all know the story. So it will significantly help us in terms of safe speeds, because the essence of any deterrent system in a country is the fact that if you commit an infraction, you're going to be caught, you're going to be fined. If you don't pay your fine, somebody's going to issue a warrant for your arrest. So we are combining the Road Traffic Act with the ticketing system.
All right, I'm going to ask you to hold on. I'm just about at break. Let me take my first break. And when we come back, we'll bring in our other guests. Remember, you can participate as well. WhatsApp us, 3810072, 3810072. Give us your first name. Give us your general location. We're talking Road Traffic Act, the new act. We'll soon come.